Welcome to Mastering Modern Midlife. I'm Catherine Grace O'Connell, and this show is powered by the Forever Fierce Revolution. I'm delighted to introduce my guest today, Dr. Nancy Irwin. She is a therapeutic hypnotist, let me get all this right, clinical psychologist, many other titles, but also the author of U-Turn, Changing Direction in Midlife, and thus a perfect guest here on Mastering Modern Midlife. Welcome to the show today, Nancy. Delighted to have you.
A pleasure to be here, Catherine. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, I cannot remember how I found you, but somehow I came across your website, and you had such a wealth of experience, but also talk about U-turns, many U-turns in life.
Yeah.
So I would love to kind of dial it back and start talking about, you lived in Atlanta and you had a background in opera, and then went over to New York City, and then it was stand-up comedy, and then to California. So let's go back to, how does opera, stand-up comedy then lead to clinical psychology?
Well, it does sound pretty crazy when you put it like that, doesn't it? I'm a quilt. But my take is everything is a transferable skill. And what I did was, yes, my first love was opera. And I was trained as an opera singer. I have a master's degree in opera performance. And I'm a good singer. But it wasn't great. I wasn't good enough for big time. The voice is not flawless, and it kind of needs to be. And I didn't really want to teach. So it doesn't mean I gave that up. I didn't lose it. But I just discovered in the path that I wasn't winning the auditions I needed to get to the next step. And I discovered there were other gifts I had on stage besides just singing opera. I had a flair for comedy. And so people just said, you should do stand-up comedy. I just heard it so many times. I'm like, yeah, I could see me doing that. So I wrote an act, and I did what everybody else does at the beginning. I assume you get 5 tight minutes. You start going to clubs and just observing others. And I thought, well, you go on a night when it's open mic night and you think, boy, I know I could be on my worst night. I'd be better than she is, for example. And then you just start getting some confidence, and you pick a night, have a couple of cocktails, get up there and prepare to bomb. What's the worst that could happen? But I didn't. It went very well the first time. I always say, I wish I had bombed, but it went well. And I just, kept doing well. I did that for 9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
In New York City? All in New York City?
Yeah. Well, I went all over the nation. I did a lot of colleges, a lot of clubs all over the nation, and a couple of tours in Korea, and entertained the U.S. military bases there, which was really thrilling.
I bet that was amazing to be able to lift the spirits of people in.
So rewarding. So rewarding. It's kind of like the USO, but it was just directly through the Army. So that was cool. And then I came back to New York, and I moved to LA in 1994 after the earthquake. I was smart about it. And I just, came to Hollywood because I heard they needed more blondes.
I think they do. There's definitely a shortage here.
Absolutely. A whole dearth of it. So I started doing the clubs. I picked up an agent, and I was doing all the TV auditions. I really wanted to have my own sitcom like every good comic does.
Of course you did.
Of course. That didn't really work out. But here's the deal. When you're a comic, you only work about 30 minutes a day. So I had a lot of time on my hands. And even though I was staff MC at the Improv on Melrose and a couple other clubs too, but that was kind of my home court. Doing well, having fun. I got to bring Jerry Seinfeld up every Monday night.
Wow.
I know.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. Huge fan.
Oh, yeah. He's a little talent there. So that was thrilling. And Ray Romano before he's who he was. So worked with a lot of great guys back then. But again, had a lot of time on my hands. So I was bored. So I started volunteering in the community, and I chose a shelter for sexually abused teens. Wasn't even really aware at the time why I chose that.
That old unconscious pulling you.
I thought I just liked the name of the shelter, which is cool. It's Children of the Night. So I started volunteering there, and something just cracked open in me in a good way. I had an epiphany. And these kids absolutely waked up the healer in me, and it allowed me to really begin to do the deep work of my own adolescent child abuse, sexual abuse. It was just extraordinary. So I would do the clubs at night, the kids by day, and over the course of a few weeks, months, those scales began tipping. And it underscored I really wasn't fulfilled in entertainment anymore. And I was just called, if you will, to go back to school and get my doctorate in psychology. I wanted to do something in the field of sexual abuse recovery.
So you were 44. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, 44. So this was your, talk about a major change at midlife, your U-turn.
Yep.
So that obviously is brilliant. You were able to connect with something that is giving back, serving, meaningful, but also doing your own inner work to clear.
Yeah.
And heal.
Yeah. And they did it for me. And we're all mirrors of each other.
We are.
So I just remember the first little girl that I worked with there, and I can still see her little face and those eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, there was this huge channel, and I had to answer that call. There was no question. And when it's your time to make a difference, I think it's not scary at all.
Yeah. There's a bigger calling that comes from this really authentic, organic space.
Yeah. So it was easy to sort of do all of my bookings that I had outstanding and just make a seamless transition. It was like stand-up was a great party, but it was just time to leave.
Yeah. So obviously I love that you talk about everything sort of lays a foundation for something else. So like you said, it wasn't like opera was a waste. It was, you've got these wonderful things to talk about, taking it to all the things you're doing now, being on, TV segments, to speaking engagements, all these different facets of opera. You're having the voice, having the projection, having the confidence, to, like you said, that lays the foundation for comedy, being able to stand in front of an audience. And then that lays a foundation for you then, like you said, to find service work and do your inner work. Now, hypnosis, but not just hypnosis, isn't just like you said, stage hypnosis.
Right.
This is therapeutic hypnosis. Right. So how did you get there, and how does that sort of bring everything together?
When you're working on your doctorate in psychology, you're naturally introduced as part of most programs to hypnosis. And having seen so many stage hypnotists in the comedy clubs I work, I was like, oh, brother, are they kidding? You're going to make me study this? How crazy. And then I began studying. I'm like, oh, wait, therapeutic. It's a real thing. Freud did it. Dr. Milton Erickson did it. It's a real thing for very severe, real pain. And I could see how it could work with addictions, with sexual dysfunctions, and the heavy, heavy stuff that I was called to work with in the field of trauma. So I'm like, this could work with recovering from sexual abuse. It's not just, singing like Elvis or squawking like a chicken. That is very real. I'm not putting that down. That is very real. Those people want to do that. I had no desire to do that stuff. I wanted to do the deep, deep traumatic recovery work. So I could see that was a very real component. So I went to HMI in Tarzana. It's the best hypnosis school in the country, fortunately, is right next door. So I did that in my last year finishing my doctorate. I don't recommend two schools at once.
That sounds like an overachiever.
Oh my God, it was crazy.
A U-turn overachiever.
Exactly. But they did dovetail together. So I was able to include that in my dissertation. And so I was able to use hypnosis and some other holistic modalities in addition to talk therapy with sex offenders. Everyone thought I had lost my mind. And frankly, many still do.
Yeah, from the pot to the fire there, you went right in.
Exactly.
But talk about a place to heal.
Exactly. I just, I'm a big believer in face the fear, and that's how you recover. So I had so many years of standing in a place like a lot of sexual abuse victims, survivors, whatever you want to call them. I desensitized the word victim because you were a victim of circumstance. But I lived for so many years in abject hatred and righteous indignation and bitterness, and it got me nowhere. My relationship history was an absolute train wreck, and I had this mental filter that was, bitterness, anger, and hatred and fear, and blocking all the good stuff that could come through. And I'm like, wait a minute, with the statistics being what they are, statistics are what they are. How do we really know? But if it's really 1/3 of girls who suffer some sort of sexual abuse before age 18 and 1/6 of boys, that means of all the 8+ billion people on the planet, that's how many billions of people have been abused.
And that's how many we know about.
That are reported.
Exactly.
Probably way more for males, of course. But I can't live in a world that would allow and support 3 to 4 billion people living in abject anger and hatred and bitterness. And I'm like, I got to let that stuff go.
Let that stuff go and then help other people. Let it go on both sides of the equation. The perpetrators as well as the people who were, like you said, victimized.
Exactly. So I did a lot of self-help work. I did a lot of therapy, a lot of well, through my studies. And then, of course, these kids, the children, and they were my best healers.
What's the greatest lesson you learned in working with the people who do abuse others?
That they're human too.
Yeah.
And most people have a concept. First of all, they hear the term sex offender and they automatically assume pedophile. Well, that's a big umbrella.
There's a range. There's a huge range.
Of course. There's peeping toms. There's, exhibitionists. There's a whole range. And even with the pedophiles, very few are the lascivious guy in the park, just, with grinning on his face, sharing tips with other guys. That is such a heuristic and a stereotype that is purported. And understand that, because I lived in that. But that's just, you deal with these people one-on-one. They live in a very hot hell.
And you're a big believer in the power of rehabilitation. Certainly everybody can't be rehabilitated, but we also, I think it was one of the shows I watched you in, and some people were dug in, and these statistics are so high, and 50% are going to keep doing it over and over again, and you can't rehabilitate them. Yeah. What's your experience?
Well, a lot of it is fake news.
There's a lot. Is there fake news?
Yeah, there is in those statistics.
Yeah.
Because when there is treatment for a sex offender, if they do the work, if there is good treatment, whether it's in prison or post-incarceration, the statistics support that the recidivism rate, the repeat crime of that particular crime, is only between 5 and 13%. People don't want to hear that and let it in. They want to, because the issue is what it is. It's very hard to know your child's abused and, all of this and live with that. That's very hard to accept. Because the anger and the hatred feel so righteous. And I get it.
Where does hypnosis fall into all of this? Because obviously we're talking about the unconscious mind and how behavior comes, our beliefs, affect our behavior. Our unconscious mind is operating at all times. And so be it a sex offender or be it, a midlife woman who's disempowered.
Right.
So how do we bring hypnosis, the tools of hypnosis, what you've learned in that to help us understand ourselves, our inner world, our belief system, how we're operating from these unconscious beliefs?
Right. Well, the unconscious, all behavior comes from the unconscious. Like people will smoke or use or drink or have negative limiting beliefs about the self because it got imprinted very early on.
So in talking about that, there's really a broader issue in taking what you have learned and the experience that you have in hypnosis, which is really deeply understanding the unconscious mind, which is how we are all operating, our beliefs, our behaviors. So how does your experience in that help us, as women at midlife, waking up to the power we have inside to understand ourselves and our beliefs and our unconscious and our programming?
Beautiful question. Thank you. Because all behavior comes from the unconscious. And whether it's a behavior or an emotional state of being, like depression, anxiety, hopelessness, feeling stuck, that can be shifted. Essentially in hypnosis, to oversimplify, we unplug people from the limiting negative beliefs and plug them into the empowering beliefs. Because beliefs are not facts. It's not a fact that if you're in your 40s, your life is over.
Right.
Or you're too old.
Trying to tell
you're
culture,
never going to find love
that.
again. You're too old to be hired. Yes, there's ageism, there's racism, there's sexism. I get it. That's a fact. But you had that when you were 21 too. So here's another thing. So we want to unplug you from the limiting belief that your life is over because you're 40 or 50 or 60. It doesn't matter. Easier said than done, but that's the place to begin. So I encourage people, if they really feel stuck, that their life is over, it's too late, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, if I was 21, I would do this over again. Please let yourself off the hook and know that whatever you did at 21 was sing an opera. There's a transferable skill in that. Tons of them. I work with a lot of creative artists now, so I understand how the psyche works, for example, and then stand-up comedy. So everything you do is feeding something else. You're collecting tools to take along the way.
So why do you see so many women at midlife having U-turns or wake-up calls? And like I said, I don't call them midlife crises, midlife awakenings.
Yeah. Midlife blaze.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, men have it too. I think it's harder for them to come out of the closet, just like reporting sexual abuse, because they are socialized differently. And men traditionally are raised to be the provider. So if they've chosen one path, let's say they're an attorney, age 40, 45, they're really not fulfilled. They got kids going to college, a huge house and all this stuff. they feel more pressure to save face and not, give that up and become a stand-up comic, if you will, or something else. Women many times have it a little easier because the kids are grown, not always, of course. But also women are trained to think that, once their beauty starts fading, it's over and all of this. So we all have these stereotypes and negative limiting beliefs we're fighting against. So I encourage people to write down a list of all those beliefs and fears that have been driving you and stopping you. And just be with that and begin to see that it's not a scientific fact. There's a huge difference between a belief and a fact.
A belief in knowing. There is
a belief and a fact. I mean, the fact that we cannot change your height unless you're wearing stilts. We can't
But we can believe that's an impediment or, depending on the culture,
course,
right? Or a positive, a negative.
Exactly. We cannot change scientific facts, but we can change our beliefs. Can't change your height, your age. I was going to say your gender, but Lord knows we could change that.
Right,
these
exactly.
days.
I know. Now
when
we can do just about anything.
To beliefs, we can always change that.
So we are basically walking around in a society where we are, hypnosis is happening at all times, and hypnosis, brainwashing, whatever you want to call it. That's just a gentle form because there's advertising messages, like you said, there's the media. For me, it's ageism, that we are having these things projected onto us at all times where we start. The problem isn't the message, it's buying into it. It's the projection, accepting it as a belief.
Exactly. And you take it on and you believe, oh yeah, I'm 40 now. My life is over.
So how do we empower women out there to think differently about aging?
Well, again, I would say write down whatever beliefs you picked up along the way because you learned that. It's not a fact. It got imprinted to you through the media, through your peers, through caregivers, through yourself. Kids, we're brilliant at making up our own negative beliefs. I'm not as pretty as she is, and things like that. So you want to just start doing a whole inventory. What were the beliefs in your household you were raised to believe about women, about aging, about career choices, about beauty, about other values? What were the values you were raised with? And what do you choose to buy into now?
Yeah, you just made me think of something because if we do this self-reflection and really these exercises to understand our beliefs and how it got us to where we are today, and if we want to have a U-turn or a pivot and we have this future self, how do we change our beliefs to get from where we are to this future self? Adopt healthier beliefs.
And it is one belief at a time, but where do beliefs come from? Well, what are they made of? They're made of words. And here's the thing, people think I'm crazy when I say this, but actually when you get down to it, words really don't exist. Language is a is a social construct. Human beings made up languages. How did they make it up? As far as we know, I wasn't there, but caveman would draw pictures on the cave and make up a word to go with it. When I point to that, give me this. Ooga. And you learn to give him the food or the sex or whatever he was pointing to at the time. And then over the course of history, millions of languages have cropped up. But here's the deal. Every word in every language represents some sort of picture. So whatever we say in our minds, so we're all self-hypnotists. Whatever we say turns into a picture in our mind's eye. The unconscious cannot process a negative. How do you see a picture of a don't or a not or a never? So if you're trying to say, okay, stop being negative, don't smoke, don't drink, don't eat the bad food. That's exactly what you're focusing on. Think of it like your mind is a Google machine. You can't go on Google and plug in what you don't want.
Yeah, don't find this, don't find that. It's going to find
no pornography. What are you going to get?
Pornography.
You plug in PG movies, science fiction movies. This is a Google machine running all day long.
So you have a background in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, which is where this really comes from. And understanding the programming, neuro is our mind, right? And the linguistics, taking the words and our thoughts and how that translates then basically into our beliefs, our behaviors, and then how our life turns out.
Absolutely.
So how do we empower ourselves with NLP? Give some actionable steps right now. Say I've got some things happening in my life that I don't like so well. How do I go inside and go, okay, what am I saying to myself and how can I say it differently? So I do have this U-turn.
Okay. Make a list of the things you'd like to change. I'm 40 pounds overweight. I'm smoking. I hate my job. I'm questioning my marriage. Write down, be realistic. This is not being
exactly.
negative.
And don't do too much because.
Exactly. But write down, yes, start with one thing you'd like to change. Maybe not the most painful thing, but something that is changeable. Just take cigarette smoking. I did that for 20, 25 years. And many of us buy into the belief it's hard to quit smoking. See the languaging there? Who says, not a scientific fact, that it's hard to quit smoking? Yes, it's an addictive substance, but the power of the mind can override any physical substance. Look at the placebo effect. Look at the nocebo effect. And you want to choose to plug into the belief, you know what, it's really not that hard. Millions of people have quit and they didn't die in the process.
I know a lot of people that quit through hypnosis. My dad,
I do it all the time.
Yeah, it's a really powerful tool for. Yeah.
You may be prepared to be a little irritable, a little bitchy for a few days out of your life, but you go through that when you have your period, when you have a root canal, when you have,
sugar, whatever it is,
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the worst. So you want to start really getting real with what your beliefs about that are, instead of mindlessly buying into the beliefs of others in the culture.
So before the show, I always have these wonderful conversations. And in my research of you, there were a million things I could have talked about. But one thing that really stood out, listening. Why is listening so important? And why is it so damn hard?
It's so damn hard because we are only one person and one body and one mind. And we're kids before we're adults. And kids are naturally narcissistic. You have to be, because you're an animal in the jungle. You don't know what to expect. And your mind's job is to keep you safe and always scour the environment looking for what could harm you, to keep you safe and see if you can adapt, if you can handle whatever's going on in the immediate future as best you can.
So there's something I'm really fascinated about, and you being a psychologist, jealousy, this culture that we're raised in as women, and certainly it applies to men too. Jealousy, envy, when we look at somebody else and they're more beautiful, they're smarter, they have a bigger home. It's always about us, isn't it?
Exactly. Let me say a word about that, because this goes right down into our DNA. The reason that is so prevalent, even here and now, is because we are socially comparative creatures by nature. We cannot escape the way we're programmed. There's still a cave woman inside of us. Back then, the first time we saw another female, automatically to survive and take care of our children and procreate, was if another woman was younger, looked more fertile, more attractive, she may take your man away from you.
They're a threat.
Exactly. You wouldn't have him to bring home the bacon, father more children, etc. Men, when they see other men, their immediate thoughts, and we even have this present day in another form, but it's deep, deep down there, which is so fascinating. It's all evolutionary psychology. Men see another man, immediately think, is he taller than me? Can he take my woman? Does he have more money than me? Can he take my woman? Women think, is she prettier than me? Is she younger than me? Can she take my man? So that is down in our blueprint. It's inescapable, but it is recoverable. It doesn't have to drive our bus anymore, nor should it. We want to click into it. And here's the deal. And I learned this very early on in the comedy clubs. It was very easy to be intimidated by somebody who was more polished, more talented, better. It's always going to be somebody in that position.
Well, they actually force you to get better and up your game, don't they?
Exactly. I had to learn very quickly because I'd be in the club performing and in would walk Robin Williams. Oh my God, my stomach would plummet, my hands, I'm like, he can't see me. All of a sudden I was a 4-year-old girl going, Mommy! Horrifying, gripping nerves. And I had to find a way to turn intimidation into inspiration. Easier said than done, but you want to remind yourself, first of all, I'm not Robin Williams. I never will be. And he's not Nancy Irwin.
Exactly.
There's always going to be somebody more brilliant, faster, funnier, more talented, younger, prettier, having more achievements. We want to find a way to, the first step is give those people their props. You have no idea what they've gone through to get that stuff.
That's so true. That's why stories are so important.
Yes. You have no idea how hard it is to be Halle Berry. Heather Locklear, look at that story.
Right now, yes. There's
and now,
a U-turn,
sadly,
a different U-turn.
We see what was going on with poor Robin Williams. So give these people their props. You
Well,
have no idea what got them there.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful reframe, particularly in comedy. Like that's an extreme example, but I think a lot of people actually are driven to comedy because of their own pain. And we, as women, oftentimes we're driven to put on that happy face, like you were sexually abused. I was sexually abused as a child. So I grew up putting a happy face on and pushing those feelings and emotions and not being real.
Right.
Then also back to the conversation with women. So I look at you and I go, oh, she's, more beautiful and blah, 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 blah. But really what it is I see your beauty and I can't see your beauty unless there's beauty in me. And let's just, sister, let's get on with it. Let's go, up my game. Maybe I need a new hairstyle. Maybe I need some more empowering belief, whatever it is, so that I can then keep improving myself.
And here's the deal. There's room for all of us. There's room for more beauty, more brilliance. And who's to say you are more attractive to me and vice versa, who's smarter?
Relativity.
It's all a matter of opinion.
Exactly.
So there's room for all of us. And we do need to band together as sisters right now more than ever. This Me Too movement, look, every color, every age, it's affected all of us and unfortunately probably will through our lifetime. Let's hope it's eradicated. That's my fervent prayer. But it probably won't. But we need each other and to honor each other's beauty and to own all of our gifts.
Well, we, were raised in a, obviously I can only speak in my experience as a woman. Certainly I had brothers and things, but as a woman, I felt like I was raised in a culture to compare myself. Sure. Constantly feeling less than. And in this community, in Forever Fierce, we don't allow mean girls, and it's not a Pollyanna. And we do welcome a difference of opinion as long as it's expressed respectfully, because the only way to shift our perception is to listen to others. Yeah. But when we smash down other women, in the end, we're just smashing ourselves down, aren't we?
Absolutely. So you want to lovingly call yourself, if you fall into that jealousy, just get out of the cave mentality and step into my high-mindedness. You can shift paradigms actually very quickly by reminding yourself you want to give that person their props. You have no idea what they've gone through. And you can turn that intimidation into inspiration. If she's got a better figure than you, use her as a resource. Wow, your abs are incredible. How'd you get that? Well, you have no idea what that can open up to you as a resource.
I think it's really important what you said about their story. It's really important. Your whole book, U-Turn, is stories, individual personal stories. And as soon as we know somebody's story, it allows us to empathize and connect in a very different way. And those judgments naturally fall away.
Absolutely. Because look, I'm nothing special. Yeah, I've got a lot of achievements. But it's not like I'm anything special. I'm like slightly above average intelligence. I've just worked my butt off. There are people way smarter than me that I work with all the time, but they're my best teachers. You can't improve your tennis game if you work with somebody that's not as good as you.
Well, they say surround yourself with actually the people who you want to be, because it just pushes you to be better and better and better.
So now I welcome intimidation. I work with people that are way smarter than me so that I can learn from them.
Forces you to kick your ass.
Yeah, I'm happy to be the weakest link on the game.
So back to stories. You've worked with a lot of people. Yeah. You share a lot of amazing stories in your book, particularly U-turn stories at midlife. Yeah. Give me one or two of the most powerful stories in U-turns that you've experienced.
Wow, there were so many. It was really hard. I mean, I could write a book about how I wrote the book, just culling all the stories and trying to decide which ones went together, because they're in two halves. One were stories by default, meaning people got divorced, dumped, had an illness, they had to change. And then those by choice, like me. I was just unfulfilled and chose to take another path. So I got a whole bunch of stories that reflect both. So change is possible for anyone. There's so many favorite stories. How do I pick? Probably, if I have to pick one that's one of my favorites, it's the one, and I don't use his real name in the book, is one of a reformed pedophile. A man that I work with all the time who's been offense-free for 38 years now.
Wow.
A lot of people don't want to hear this, but it's so empowering because I was a victim. And through working with sex offenders, I was able to humanize them and see they're not these scary, dying to offend creatures we make them out to believe. They live in a hot hell, and a lot of them were victimized and want to change too.
So you do this thing called restorative therapy.
Restorative therapy. I work with, it's extraordinarily powerful. I've done it myself as the survivor, but I work with this man who's in the book and others too. But you take someone who is grounded, who is in recovery and stable for a certain length of time, at least, 5 years. So they really have had time to reflect and understand and catch their impulses and prevent them. Yes. And they're willing to talk about it. And they've done the work on understanding victim empathy. And then you take a survivor. And so you allow the survivor to ask any questions, vent any anger, and they hold a space for that. And they answer as sincerely and authentically as they can. It's extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary. It's healing for both. Keeps that person continuing to learn victim empathy and respect and holding the boundaries. And it helps the survivor understand they are human. They didn't have these tools way back when. It's not justifying the behavior at all. So I hope people hear me clearly. Believe me, I went through all of that myself. But it's amazing. And so I love that story because it gives hope to what a lot of people want to brand as the hopeless.
I totally agree with you, as also obviously someone who's been victimized, because I don't think just punishment and putting people away, it's not serving us. And we're all rehabilitatable on every level, right? Depending on, and everything's relative on what we do. So how do you take what you do in restorative therapy and say, use that out in the world by people being open to bringing two conversations together that are maybe black and white? And, I'm not open to this person and their perception, but when we bring two sides of the coin together, it naturally shifts our perception and allows judgments to fall away.
And it's different with each individual dyad in which it occurs. And they do things like this with racism. They'll take a neo-Nazi and a black person, and that's extraordinary too. And they find a way to collaborate rather than being polar opposite. So every situation is different, but like you said, I like what you said. Punishment is not the answer. Sometimes people have to have a timeout and be in prison to think. That can be helpful. But punishment, when we punish others, we're almost always punishing ourselves.
Right. It doesn't mean punishment isn't part of the rehabilitation process. Punishment alone doesn't rehabilitate anyone. It locks them away and costs us a fortune. But if someone is rehabilitatable, and we've seen many people being rehabilitated, that's certainly more powerful to have someone serving society.
Absolutely. And that's a whole nother conversation. But we need to have rehabilitation where they are put away and they have proper treatment while they're there so they can make the best of that time and then be ready to join society stronger rather than just, you're horrible, you're a piece of crap, Well,
the more empathy we can have, obviously, is really important. So back to the U-turn and the book, The U-turn. We have a whole audience filled of women who are looking to rewire. We call it rewire and inspire. Be rewired and inspired by others. So how do we know that we're ready for a U-turn? How do we make that U-turn happen? Give us some simple steps. Number one, for awareness of what's going on in the inside, that maybe it's time to pivot. And also actionable steps on how we make that happen.
Great. It's time to make a U-turn in your life if you are feeling unfulfilled, bored, maybe angry or depressed or anxious. And it's beyond just maybe hating your boss. Maybe it's not that career that's making you upset. It may just be time to take make a lateral move. So you're in the same line of work, just with a different boss. So you want to be very careful to diagnose exactly what's upsetting you, what's out of whack, what's not fulfilling, what's missing. That's a great place to start. And it's not always professionally. Sometimes there's something else in your life. Maybe spiritually you're starved. That's what's missing. Or maybe it's the empty nest. You're bored. You have a lot of time on your hands. Maybe you need to volunteer or resume an old hobby or take on a new one or rejuvenate your relationship. So U-turn can apply to a lot of things. Maybe it's with your body and your health. Maybe it's time to give up that addiction. So in fact, that's one of the stories of an alcoholic. He made a U-turn in his health department, kept his job. So U-turn can be in any domain of your life. You just need to do the work, maybe work with a therapist or someone who really knows you and can sort of help you see what's missing, what's just not you right now.
It's a lot harder for ourselves to see ourselves clearly than someone outside
Many
of
times.
ourselves. So what would it be like? Let's say I made a list on all these things that I don't want to say troubling me, but maybe things like maybe I'm leaking energy. Maybe I'm tired every day. So that would point to be it my health or my sleep or my job or my friends. So would you create one list and list all these things where I feel like something is off and then choose something to work on?
Okay. It's great to have a list of what is working in your life. So you want to have a nice balance of, we need to start with gratitude. First of all, I'm healthy. I have a good support system, for example. I have enough money in the bank, and then write down what's missing. I'm just kind of bored at work. I never wanted to do this job. It just kind of fell in my lap. Maybe it's time to move on and find something else. So here's a great thing to do if you fall into that category. And that's to look around and go out in the community and volunteer. That's what changed my life. It was a happy accident. I just thought I was bored. But there's something about that selfless service where you're not wearing any other hats. You're not sister, mother, daughter, anything else, professional. It's pure soul energy, human to human. And it's a great equalizer. There's no money on the table. It's all win-win. And it tends to wake up some other facet of our being that is just extraordinary. And you can't predict it. It will happen in the moment.
I love what you said. You're basically taking inventory and with a focus on gratitude. So obviously the things that are working, we don't necessarily have to shift. So we have that inventory. So we don't start going down in this negative spiral and go all these things
the end of the world.
wrong.
Right.
It's like, here's the good. Okay, here are things that maybe don't feel so good. And these are things we can work on, but let's be grateful for these.
Yes.
This expands.
Exactly.
Something you talk about in your book is called a heart virtue. What's a heart virtue?
Heart virtue is sort of what your main value is. For some people, it's education. Others, it's integrity. They have a fine sense of justice. So things in the world that are just not right really upset them. So the flip side of that is you want to find your way to make it better. Mine happens to be healing. I like to watch people grow and help scrape away, as we say in the South, just wipe the crap off the gold and let it come shining through. Because we all have that chunk of gold within us. So I love being a healer. That's what my mission is to help others heal.
What's the most powerful part of being a woman at midlife and beyond?
I think it's actually kind of a great relief when some of the beauty starts fading. I believe there's a special beauty at every age, but I refuse to live in a culture where you peak at 21. First of all, I didn't. I was way overweight, smoking, and it's just...
That's another show.
Exactly, exactly. So it's kind of cool when that starts blowing away, when there's not an overt sexual charge in the room all the time. It's kind of cool when people start calling you ma'am. Other people go, I'm too old to be called ma'am. First of all, I'm from the South. That doesn't bother me at all. But I actually like it because I feel more respect for my experience and my, for my experience and my learning.
So you're more
that
connected.
Only comes with age.
Yeah, you're more connected to who you truly are on the inside and forces you really to turn within.
Yeah, I think everything has a purpose. And as much as we complain, we don't want stuff sagging and spreading and all of that. And I fight it. I work at it. I'm the best I can be. I truly believe that, again, there's a special beauty at every age. But it's kind of cool when that happens. And I think the purpose is when this begins fading or not quite as traditionally attractive, if you will.
Or culturally.
Right, exactly. It forces us to go within and see a different kind of beauty. And that can only come when this is, I wouldn't say taken away, but when it begins changing, when it begins shifting. And I find that very refreshing, actually.
Well, that's very empowering. So if there are women out there right now who may be, I don't want to say grasping onto their younger selves and fighting those wrinkles, there's all this anti-aging stuff out there.
Right.
How do we really turn within to build ourselves from the inside, build our self-esteem, build our self-confidence?
Well, first of all, you look at phenomenal people who are much older, and that's the Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who still works out 3 times a week.
Amazing.
And she was very attractive as a young woman. She's still attractive now. She's the best she can be. And this, oh my God, just goes without saying, she's phenomenal. Yeah. And Betty White.
Betty White is amazing.
Absolutely
isn't she?
adorable. And
Yeah.
there are plenty others. Oh my God, we have such a rich, culture. Jane Fonda,
Jane Fonda is kicking ass, isn't she?
Madonna,
Is she,
Sharon
80?
Stone, all these women who still, they have all this gold within. I mean, God, there's just so many. We're living in such exciting times where we are reclaiming our power and being the best we can be. Take care of this and be comfortable. Be the best you can be. And for God's sakes, be healthy. It's the main thing.
It is the main thing.
But let go within and get to the real beauty.
So you've done some amazing things in your life. Like I said, you've gone from opera to comedy to clinical psychology to hypnosis to, helping people, serving people. What is the greatest thing to you in your life? Achievement, and I don't mean material achievement. I mean to you. What's the greatest experience you've had? What's the greatest sort of takeaway being who you are today?
Wow, you should have given me this question before. I need to prepare for that.
But it's again, you all people know that it's right there. It's in your heart, and you don't need to prepare to know. Okay, let me reframe that. When you were 20, like you said, okay, you wouldn't go back there. You were overweight, smoking, whatever. Neither would I for my own belief system. But here you sit, this midlife woman today with all this life experience, wealth of experience, shifted from, this process of being angry over being sexually abused to being this on the other side of it and helping abusers. So, if you wouldn't go back to being 20 and here you are, this midlife woman, if you were to put, say, 3 words about yourself, what would they be?
One would be trust. One would be compassion. And one would be forgiveness. That's all for the self and for others. And
if you were 20, what would those words have been?
Oh, wow. I probably wouldn't have even had a clue what those 3 words meant at the time.
Exactly.
It would have been more retaliation, something around those lines,
like a
getting back, having to stand out. There was a lot of anger.
The righteous anger, like you said.
A lot of righteous anger. Yeah. And it's very easy to stay in that because anger feels so powerful. We're loud. We have a lot of energy. We have adrenaline. We get attention. But it's so debilitating.
Yeah. And that's how we use it.
Yeah. And I like to use the example because it's so clear to see how this can work. Let's look at the best social reformers in the world had every right to be righteously angry, but they turned that into passion to make a difference.
Exactly.
Martin Luther King had every right in the world to be angry and want to be violent back at his oppressors, but he didn't because he knew that would go nowhere.
Nelson Mandela, person after person.
It's endless.
Yeah, and Me Too movement, it wouldn't be there if people didn't have anger, but they turned it into positive change.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had to use that formula to save myself. I couldn't keep getting upset and angry with this mofo who offended me and all the others like him. That energy goes nowhere.
What I heard you say is really the essence of Forever Fierce and the essence of the beauty and power found in a midlife woman. It's like we've peeled these layers. There's a softening on the inside, but there's also an empowerment, which isn't a power from that angry place. It's an internal power, a different kind of power.
Absolutely.
So what is that power to you?
Well, it's a whole duality. There is a softness, but there's a strength. And I think, some of the simplest things in the world are the most powerful. A newborn baby, it's exquisite beauty, but it is completely helpless in a sense, but it can, soften a giant, if you will. So in a rosebud opening, there's so many just very simple things that leave us completely awe-stricken.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite books is David Hawkins' Power versus Force, and talking about what the difference between true power and force. And we're kind of taught true power is actually force, but true power really is it's a different kind of, it's an internal power and belief system.
Absolutely.
Operating from a good place.
And it's an unfolding. You have to just trust. Like I said, I had this idea, I need to go study psychology. I had no idea what the end of the road would look like. I had no idea I was going to hypnosis. What? Or even to be a therapist. I really thought I was going to be a social worker at Children of the Night. I wanted to work with these kids. but something inside of me just said, just trust, just pick up the phone. I got the call that said, just study psychology and trust that the answers will be revealed to you as you march down that path.
Well, I think that's a beautiful place to kind of tie things up. Trust, and that comes from our intuition. It comes from, it's internal trust.
Right. And if you find out you're on the wrong road, trust that you can correct. You can do damage control. Trust doesn't mean you know you're right and it's all going to work out exactly like you envisioned. No, it means you take this road, but you may want to veer off. If that's wrong, you have the coping skills and trust that you have enough intelligence, support around you, the health, the awareness, and the skills and the forgiveness to get back on and discover another path. That's what we have to keep trusting.
And building self-trust. And all this work, everything
Always.
you're talking about, and really learning about our unconscious and our belief systems and where they come from and if they're serving us, the more we unpeel that, the more we build trust in ourselves.
And understanding what you feel your mission, your purpose is. Once you know the why, the how comes along.
Yeah.
And you can't really predict it. It may seem to come out of left field, but it didn't. You're knowing your why has sort of generated all the forces that will bring in the hows to you.
And like you said, acting on inspiration. When it comes through that idea and you know, like in your heart, when you start getting that excitement, that energy, to act on it.
Yeah.
Take those steps.
Absolutely. You have to walk out on that limb because that's where the sweet fruit is.
It's a beautiful way to say it. So what's next for you? Is there another U-turn coming?
You know, there could be. I don't know. I kind of like where I am right now.
That's great.
I'm really at peace. I have a wonderful marriage now, and I got married very late. So talk about a U-turn.
Talk about another story. We actually have a lot of women in the community in that place, either finding love for the first time at midlife or making changes, maybe multiple marriages, but finding that right person.
Absolutely. You're never too old to love. And I always loved being single. I just loved being the single professional chick. But I was always open to marriage. I wasn't closed to it. I just met somebody. It was a really good fit. When I was 58, we got married.
Wow.
So that was a week ago.
Okay. Of course it was.
I met him when I was 55.
That is amazing. That's a great story and a great note to
First
a happy
marriage.
note.
Absolutely.
So if people want to check you out, check out your website, get your book, work with you, let us know, how do they find you?
Absolutely. Thank you. My website is drnancyirwin.com. That's DRNANCYIRWIN.com.
Awesome. And you work with people privately here in LA?
I have an office in West LA. Yeah.
So
I'm also on staff at Seasons Recovery Center in Malibu. I don't see private patients there, but for those who want to go into a rehabilitation for substance abuse, I'm there on staff, which is extraordinarily fulfilling as well.
Fantastic. And also your book, let me grab that. Oh, I stuck it over here now because I had it improperly placed, guys. So U-Turn, this is available on Amazon. It's an instant download on Kindle, but you can also get the physical hard copy. And we're actually going to be giving away a free copy in the next newsletter. So you guys be looking out for this. You can get your own copy of U-Turn because you might have a change of direction in midlife coming.
Or even a younger life.
Exactly. That is true. That is true. So
we change it any age, but
thank you so much for being with us today. It was delightful and we learned so much.
Oh, thank you. Live a life you love, guys.
Live a life you love. Cheers, beauties. Stay fierce.